Under the endless night sky of the galaxy, the Dragonkin Empire ruled for thousands of years. Stars burned under their command, and countless worlds followed their rule. At the center of this empire sat Emperor Kael Dravonis, a being of ancient power, a dragon who could take the form of a man. His golden wings once darkened skies, and his voice could shake entire fleets. Yet despite his power, Kael felt empty. Centuries of ruling had turned life into silence. He no longer understood how his people lived or what they felt. He only saw numbers, laws, and reports, never hearts or faces. One day, Kael decided to step away from his throne of stars. He wanted to see the truth for himself. Disguised as a simple traveler named Kael Doran, he left the palace in secret, wearing plain clothes and hiding his strength behind the calm look of an ordinary man. His ship took him far away, to a small colony called Eden 9, a dusty planet filled with old buildings, broken machines, and hard-working humans trying to survive. Eden 9 was once a beautiful world, but now it struggled under heavy imperial taxes. People worked long hours just to earn enough credits for food. The Empire's trade officers took most of their resources, leaving little behind. Kael wanted to see how they endured it, and so he took a simple job at a small diner near the spaceport. The diner was a humble place with flickering lights, cracked tables, and a smell of old oil mixed with warm bread. It was run by a young woman named Lena Thorne. She was not rich or powerful, but she had a kindness that made the diner feel alive. She smiled at every customer even when she was tired. Her hands were often red from washing dishes, yet she never complained. Kael watched her for days, trying to understand her quiet strength. He saw how she worked from morning until midnight. She served food to miners and cargo pilots, always polite, always gentle. When the day ended and everyone left, she stayed behind to clean. Kael noticed something strange. Each night, she packed leftover bread and placed it carefully into paper bags. Then she wrapped herself in an old coat and went outside into the cold. Curious, Kael followed her one night. The air outside was freezing and the streets were almost empty. Lena walked quickly through narrow alleys until she reached an old shelter made from metal scraps. Inside, Kael saw small children huddled together, their faces pale from hunger. Lena knelt down, smiling softly, and handed them the bread. The children's eyes lit up as they ate, and she spoke to them gently, making sure each one had enough. Kael stood in the shadows, stunned. She was just a waitress, yet she risked punishment for giving away food that technically belonged to the diner. If the owner or the local guards found out, she could lose her job or worse. But she didn't care. She did it anyway. He couldn't understand it. Why would a fragile human choose kindness over safety? When Lena left the shelter, Kael returned to his small room above the diner. He sat by the window, staring at the stars. For the first time in a long while, he felt something stir inside him, something warm and unfamiliar. He had seen many warriors and rulers across the galaxy, but none of them had shown such quiet courage. The next evening, things changed. As Lena was cleaning the counter, 2 local enforcers walked into the diner. Their black uniforms carried the symbol of the Imperial Trade Office. One of them, a tall man with a rough voice, shouted at her. "You've been stealing food," he accused. "Bread goes missing every night. We've been told you give it away." Lena froze. Her hands trembled slightly, but she didn't deny it. "I only gave what would be thrown away," she said softly. "Those children—" "Silence!" the enforcer barked, slamming his hand on the counter. "You are under arrest for theft against the trade office." Before Kael realized it, he was already on his feet. He stepped between them and Lena. "You should leave," he said calmly. The enforcers laughed. "And who are you? Another poor worker?" Kael's eyes glowed faintly for a moment, a golden shimmer that no ordinary man could have. The enforcers' laughter died as fear crept across their faces. Before they could react, Kael moved. His hand gripped the officer's wrist with lightning speed and twisted it gently, not breaking it but showing strength far beyond human limits. "She did nothing wrong," Kael said quietly. "Leave her be." The men stumbled back, muttering curses, and ran out of the diner. Lena stared at him in shock. "What did you do? How did you move so fast?" Kael looked at her, unsure what to say. "I've had training," he replied simply. "I couldn't let them hurt you." She wanted to ask more, but he turned away. That night they cleaned the diner together in silence. As Lena washed the dishes, Kael fixed a broken light near the ceiling. Their eyes met for a brief moment and she smiled faintly. "Thank you," she said softly. "You didn't have to help me." Kyle looked at her and replied, "Maybe I needed to." Later that night, after Lena went home, Kyle received a signal from the small communicator hidden in his jacket. The holographic screen flickered to life, showing an Imperial officer kneeling before the throne room, his own throne room. The officer's voice was urgent. "Your Majesty, rebels have risen on Eden 9. They are attacking our outposts. You must evacuate immediately before they discover you." Kyle froze. He looked at the message, realizing that his disguise might no longer protect him. He walked to the window and stared at the dusty streets below. In the distance, smoke rose from the horizon. The rebellion had begun. He thought of Lena, still working at the diner, still caring for the children. She had no idea that the empire she served food to was the same empire ready to crush her people. And the cruel truth was that he, Kale Dravonis, had built that empire. He felt a deep pain in his chest. Not physical, but emotional. For the first time, he saw the damage his laws had caused. He remembered the faces of his generals who demanded order, the governors who spoke of control, and now the humans who suffered under it. The next morning, the streets were filled with chaos. Explosions echoed in the distance. The rebels were fighting Imperial soldiers near the mines. Kel saw people running, some carrying wounded loved ones, others searching for safety. He found Lena outside the diner, helping a group of frightened children. Her hands were covered in dust, her face pale but determined. "Kyle," she called when she saw him. "We have to get them out of here." Without thinking, he joined her. Together they guided the children to a safer area behind the storage docks. But when they reached the alley, Imperial soldiers appeared again, this time with rifles and orders to clear the area. Kyle's disguise couldn't last much longer. He raised his hands, stepping between the soldiers and the children. "Leave them alone," he ordered. The soldiers laughed. "Orders from command, no mercy for rebels or their helpers." One soldier aimed his weapon at Lena. That was the final moment of restraint Kale had left. His eyes flashed gold again, brighter this time, and a shockwave of energy pulsed through the air. The soldiers stumbled back, weapons sparking. Kyle's voice turned deep and commanding. "Run!" he shouted to Lena. She didn't argue. She gathered the children and escaped down the alley while Kale faced the soldiers alone. When the smoke cleared, the soldiers were unconscious, their armor cracked but their bodies unharmed. Kale stood alone, breathing deeply. His disguise shimmered slightly as golden scales appeared along his neck for a brief second before fading again. He looked at his reflection in a broken window and whispered to himself, "How far have I drifted from what I once was?" As the city burned in the distance, Kale made a silent promise. He would not run away. He would stay, not as an emperor, not as a dragon, but as someone who wanted to understand and protect the kind of courage he had seen in a human waitress. And though he didn't yet know it, that choice would soon change the fate of the entire empire. The city of Eden 9 shook as the rebellion spread. Fires burned in the distance and the streets were filled with people running for safety. Kale, now aware of the danger surrounding the humans he had come to observe, could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. He had come to see ordinary life, but now those lives were in peril, lives he could not ignore. Lena ran through the alleyways with the children close behind her. Their faces were pale, eyes wide with fear, but there was also trust that someone, anyone, would protect them. Kale followed silently, moving faster than a human should, his senses heightened. He scanned the streets, noting the positions of the rebel fighters and the Imperial soldiers. Chaos had become a living thing, twisting and turning through the city like smoke. When they reached a wider street, Kale saw the full scale of the attack. Rebels had set up barricades near the trade offices, and Imperial soldiers were pushing forward, using energy rifles that lit up the night. Civilians screamed as they ran, some tripping over debris. Lena held a child in her arms while guiding others, her voice steady despite the chaos. Kale approached her. "We can't stay here," he said. "We need to find higher ground. Somewhere safe," she nodded. "There's an old warehouse nearby," she said. "We can hide there for now." Together they led the group through narrow alleys and back streets. Kale kept watch, using his reflexes to protect them from falling debris and stray fire. At one point, a small blast from a rebel grenade knocked him off balance, but he caught himself and continued. making sure none of the children fell. Lena glanced at him, worry in her eyes, but she did not question his strength. Somehow she sensed he could handle it. They finally reached the warehouse, a massive structure of steel and concrete. It was empty except for a few crates, but it offered shelter from the chaos outside. Lena guided the children inside, giving them water and scraps of food she had saved from the diner. Kyle watched as she moved among them, calming their fears, singing quietly to keep their spirits up. He realized that her courage was not loud or flashy. It was quiet, steady, and unwavering. Kyle's communicator crackled again. The holographic display showed the Imperial fleet in orbit around Eden 9, preparing to intervene. His generals were speaking urgently, demanding that he give the order to fire on the city. They had no regard for the civilians. They only saw the rebellion as a threat to control. Kyle's heart pounded. If he gave the order, countless innocent humans would die. But if he refused, the rebellion could spread, and his generals might see him as weak. He turned to Lena. "You and these children must stay hidden," he said. "I have to stop this before more people are hurt." "Kale, you're not like them, are you?" Lena asked quietly. "You don't want to hurt anyone." Kale looked at her, the golden light of his eyes faintly visible beneath his human disguise. "I won't let anyone die tonight," he said. The ground trembled as Kale stepped outside. Imperial soldiers were advancing toward the warehouse, rifles raised. He raised his hands not as a threat but as a shield. A pulse of energy radiated from him, small but strong enough to push the soldiers back without hurting them. Their weapons sparked and fell from their hands. Kale's voice rang out, deep and commanding. "Stop! You will not harm these people." The soldiers froze, unsure of what they were seeing. Their orders had been simple: crush the rebellion and eliminate any helpers. But the man before them was no ordinary human. The air shimmered around him, golden scales flickering briefly along his arms and neck. Meanwhile, Lena and the children watched from inside the warehouse. Their mouths fell open as Kale's disguise faded completely. The figure before them was magnificent, terrifying, and awe-inspiring. Golden wings spread from his back, stretching wide enough to shadow the street. His eyes glowed like molten gold, and his scales caught the light from the burning city. One of the children whispered, Is he a dragon?" Lena didn't answer. She could barely believe it herself. But she understood one thing clearly: he was here to protect them. Kyle moved through the streets, deflecting energy blasts from the soldiers with his claws and strength. He did not strike to kill. He used precise movements to disable weapons, topple armored vehicles, and create safe paths for civilians to escape. Each step he took shook the ground, but he was careful, ensuring no one was harmed. In orbit, the Imperial fleet prepared to fire. Ships lined up, weapons charged. Kale raised his hand toward the sky, and the golden light of his power reached the command systems of the ships. One by one, the weapons powered down. The fleet fell silent, unable to fire because the Emperor himself had commanded them to stop. His voice echoed across the channels. "If power cannot protect the weak, then it is not strength. It is failure." The rebel forces froze in confusion, and the Imperial generals were stunned. They had obeyed orders without question for centuries, but now the Emperor had chosen compassion over control. Back on the ground, Kale guided civilians toward the outskirts of the city. Lena and the children followed closely, their steps careful but fast. Civilians who had been running in panic began to see safety in his presence. The people's fear turned into hope. Kale finally landed near the broken diner where it had all begun. Smoke still rose from nearby buildings, but the streets were safer. Lena approached him slowly, her eyes wide. "Kyle, why? Why did you do this?" He looked at the destroyed city and at the frightened, exhausted people. "Because I saw what mattered," he said. "I saw courage, kindness, and the will to survive, and I could not ignore it." Lena reached out and touched his scaled hand. "You're the Emperor." "The Dragon Emperor," she whispered. "But you're different." Kale knelt before her and the children. "I am no different from the people I have watched tonight," he said softly. "I only remembered what I forgot. That strength is meant to protect, not to destroy." He spoke to the leaders of the Empire, abolishing the unfair taxes that had caused suffering. Trade rules were rewritten, giving colonies like Eden 9 the freedom to thrive. He promised to protect the planet not with fear but with guidance and support. Before departing, he left a small piece of golden scale on the diner counter. a royal sigil. Lena picked it up, feeling warmth from it. It was a sign that the Emperor had kept his word, a symbol of hope and trust. That night, Lena stood outside the diner with the children, watching the sky. Among the stars, a golden streak moved across the heavens, Kyle returning to his throne in the Empire. Yet the people of Eden 9 knew that he had changed. The Dragon Emperor was no longer a distant ruler of fear. He was a protector, a reminder that even in a universe of power and conquest, kindness and courage could shape destiny. As she held the children close, Lena smiled. They were safe now, and in the silence of the night she whispered a simple truth that echoed through the streets. One person, one act of courage can change everything. Kyle's golden form disappeared among the stars, but the memory of his choice remained. He had seen humans saving bread, risking their own safety for others, and in their actions he rediscovered what it meant to be truly powerful. Strength without compassion was empty. True strength was measured in protection, in mercy, and in the courage to act for others. The city began to rebuild. Fires were extinguished, walls repaired, and families reunited. Lena returned to her diner, baking bread once more, sharing it freely just as she always had. But now she knew that her small acts of kindness were seen by a dragon, by an emperor, by the stars themselves, and somewhere beyond the galaxy. Kale watched, knowing that humans, and small, fragile, courageous humans, could remind even a dragon emperor of the true meaning of power. The story of Eden 9 spread quietly through the Empire, a tale of courage, mercy, and the incredible impact of one human's kindness. It became a legend, a reminder that in the vastness of space, even the smallest act could awaken greatness, and so, the Dragon Emperor's heart, once cold and distant, was warmed by what he had witnessed. A simple waitress saving bread, standing tall against fear, and inspiring an emperor to remember the humanity in all beings.